Hi, welcome everyone to my presentation on the two different studies that I've been covering for Chapter 5. I'm covering Study 5, which is on corrective feedback, and then Study 6 is on questions in the classroom. So in Study 5, research on corrective feedback when it came to students' writing has been focused on whether or not corrective feedback can help learners improve their writing. We want to know, does corrective feedback actually improve students' writing? In a study from Young-Hee Sheen in 2010, it compared the effects of two different types of oral and written corrective feedback on adult ESL learners and whether they were using articles correctly. When it came to oral corrective feedback, it was the two different types covered were recasts and metalinguistic information, while written corrective feedback was direct correction or direct metalinguistic feedback. So how the study was broken down was that there was 5 different groups. The first group is the control group. This is my first question for all of you in the chat. I would like you to quickly define what a control group is. So I'm going to pause for a second. If you put in the chat that a control group is a group separated from the rest of the experiment, and in this specific study, the control group does not receive any of the feedback types that the other groups are receiving. So the other groups were oral recasting, oral metalinguistic feedback, written direct correction, and written direct metalinguistic feedback. Then all of the participants in all of the groups did 2 30-minute activities where they read a story and then retold that story orally or written. Participants in the oral group received recast or oral metalinguistic feedback each time they made an article error during their retelling of that story. Participants who wrote the story received corrections on their article usage around 2 days later. The participants were tested on their article knowledge before they were instructed on articles, immediately after they were taught, and then again 3 to 4 weeks later using dictation, written narratives, and error correction tasks. Results from all of these different types of tests each time found that all groups outperformed the control group on all tests except the group that received oral recasts. So what Sheen interprets from these findings is that the medium, so if the feedback is either given orally or through writing, is not as important as how explicit the corrective feedback is. So the recasting versus the direct metalinguistic feedback. So direct feedback is more effective than indirect feedback, is what he found. In the next study, Study 6, Teachers' Questions in ESL Classrooms, Michael Long and Charlene Sato in 1983 wanted to examine the differences between display questions and genuine questions. This is my second question for you all and to use the chat. Can you think of an example of a display question and write it in the chat? And then after you're done with that, can you think of a genuine question example and write it in the chat? So Long and Sato, for their study, recorded audio recordings of 6 adult ESL classes and their interactions within the classroom and then their interactions outside of the classroom with each other. What Long and Sato found in their study was that the conversations in the classroom between students and teachers were that there are more display questions being used in the conversations inside the classroom, and then with conversations outside of the classroom, within this the student to student, there were more genuine questions happening. So like in the real world, genuine questions happen, and that is not being done in the classroom to kind of demonstrate what's going on in the real world. The classroom is having a lot more display questions. After their findings, Long and Sato thought that the interactions in the classroom is not an equivalent to the interactions out of the classroom, and that should be changed. There should be more genuine questions and less display questions in the classroom. My last question to you to end my presentation is, do you agree with them? Do you think that there should be less display questions in the classroom and more genuine questions? And why or why not? We can either do this in the chat or we can kind of have a verbal discussion with our mics on. Okay? I hope that this kind of cleared up any questions for the two studies and that you found this helpful. Bye, guys.